Kill Me Baby is an anime from 2012 that follows the daily school life of two or sometimes three main characters. The series is a gag comedy and is based off of the manga which was written in 2008 by the same name. Is what I would say if I was as dumb as the rest of you. Luckily though, both for me and for your reviewing pleasure, I am not. Okay, so if it's not based on the manga by the same name, then what, you might ask yourself. To that I say, don't be stupid. Of course it's based on the manga by the same name, but what no one ever mentions about this is that the manga itself was based upon another franchise, and can even be seen as a spin-off of it. I am of course talking about the James Bond series. Now at first glance you might shoo me off, thinking that while sure it has some influence from James Bond, as most stories centered around any kind of spy does, it's surely not that Bondian, is it? Oh, let me tell you, it is. And I shall prove it by connecting several aspects of Kill Me Baby to the Bond franchise. First off, let's look at the characters themselves, starting with the killer of the series, Sonya. You might expect me to say that, being the trained assassin, her match would be the closest to Bond, but no. She is clearly way more inspired by characters like Red Grant from Russia with Love or Necros from The Living Daylights, which are all quite opposed to Bond. These characters all share common characteristics, like them all being Russian, skilled killers, and blonde. Though these are far from the only blonde Bond assassin adversaries, they are the ones that are the most strikingly like Sonya. Now some of you, if you've seen From Russia with Love, might point out that Red Grant was in fact not set up as a skilled assassin, but merely an escaped murderer. To that I say, how was he able to navigate the world of espionage so much if he was not a trained assassin to some degree? He must have been, thus making Sonya fall even more into his character when you look at him this way. But what about the dark-haired man that Red Grant fights, aka Bond? Well, that, my friends, is a rather obvious answer, innit? A character most like Bond himself in Kill Me Baby, and the thing that really cements this founding of mine is the character of Yasuna, who it can be argued is the main character of the series. Now at first glance, I bet you this sounds quite off as well. But once you start to look into both her and Bond's character, it starts to really make sense. Before you say anything about James Bond not being able to speak Japanese, remember you only live twice? Yeah. He even has a degree in Oriental languages. So him being able to blend in like that isn't too much of a stretch. Now that's all just theoretically. Yasuna is a girl, of course, but is still quite clearly some kind of foreign agent that has come to blows with Sonya. This helps explain why she is so ecstatic at the Ninja Girls Japanese-style room, as she is not as familiar with Japanese culture as a regular Japanese gal would be. This is also why she is such a fucking retard. To mask the fact that she is not really used to her environment, she acts dumb, so people will just assume she is being her stupid old self when she gets stuff wrong, and don't become suspicious towards her. I mean, do you really think a Japanese girl in high school can be this stupid without having to repress herself due to Japan's strict culture? I certainly don't. She even has her own little off-filters cue in the form of the ninja girl, I don't really remember her name, who constantly makes wacky gadgets. Only here, we don't see our protagonists use them. Keyword here being see. Heck, she even has a Bond girl in the form of the unused character. It's not just a coincidence that she's unused, as Bond constantly wants people he's working with to leave his missions to ensure that they aren't harmed.
This is no place for you, Q. Go home.
And even if you look away from the character motivations of not featuring the unused character in the show that much, there is still some meta connections at play here. Tell me, when was the last time any girl in a Bond film, actually did something? And in a show about doing almost nothing, a character like that would be seen as being way too important. Having talked about the main characters and their relation to Bond, I can now start talking about some of the situations the characters of the show find themselves in, and how many of them are basically adaptations of Bond scenes. But let's start with one that isn't. The way that Sonya and Yasuna interact isn't purely for comedy, you see. At least not when you start looking underneath the hood. In addition to what I said earlier about Yasuna just acting stupid rather than actually being stupid, you also have the fact that Sonya constantly mock kills Yasuna. This has a very deliberate purpose, as both of the main characters have figured out that the other one is some kind of spy, and therefore are constantly on the edge about the other one being able to kill them at any moment. Taken through this lens, the series becomes very centered around espionage in nature, as Sonya knows that Yasuna is on the edge about her, and tries to remedy this by pretend killing her a lot, so she won't be ready for when she actually goes in for the real kill. Yasuna, being the smarty pants that she is, already knows this, but she can't really do anything, seeing as Sonya is put even more on edge by even the slightest disturbance. And so all she can do is live with this fact until an opportune moment arises for her to rid herself of the burden known as Sonya. If we now look back to the scene where Yasuna sees the ninja girls flat, we are able to see several concepts lifted from You Only Live Twice in it. First off, you have a Japanese-styled house with a lot of deadly traps, something that might remind one of how Bond's MI6 informant dies in said film. In addition to the trapdoor that Bond falls down by following that Japanese girl I forgot the name of into that one house. You know which one I'm talking about, don't you? It's the one. And try not to tell me that the lunch scenes in this anime don't remind you of the dinner scene with Red Grant and Bond in From Russia with Love. Try. I dare you. Having said all this, I would be amazed by anyone having watched this entire video and not been convinced by it. Like, once you notice it, it's there. I can't be the only one that sees the parallels, right? Right? I mean,